Let's go, girls.
Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe.
Let's go. It's Women Talking Football, or WTF for short, of course, never, ever to be confused with WFT. My name is Mallory Hartley. I'm the associate producer here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football and Dave Campbell's Texan Live, a very tired associate producer. But guess who's not tired at all? Who is just super energized and happy to be here. She's the one turning the dials today. It's the executive producer, Miss Ashley Pickle, or AP.
That's me. Energized,
never tired.
As always.
Correct.
We're in a constant state of tired from... Yeah, someone, Step said that. He's like, oh, off-season project for you. I was like, what the hell is an off-season?
Oh, yeah, to watch the...
off-season.
To watch The Wire or something like that? Yeah, that's really funny. I saw that too, and I was like, I know exactly what she's going to respond to that. And it's going to be, can you define what off-season is? Because we don't have an off-season.
Boycott that. Yeah, we boycott that word on this show.
We sure do.
Not happening.
Sure do. We're an internet show. We're here every Thursday for the most part at 2 p.m. talking football around the Lone Star State. And it's episode 48 of Women Talking Football. On today's show, we're going to go way out west and look at the El Paso and Permian Basin region. We'll bring in Rachel Phillips of KVIA to look more in depth into the El Paso region, and then we'll give you our take on the El Paso and Permian Basin regions through players to watch, team ranks, and highest rated teams in classifications. But first, before we get to all of that craziness and madness, it's time to reveal our Week 3 Texas Football Tonight Spotlight games. And man, we have got some bangers on this list this week. I'm super excited. Let's head over to Ashley Pickle to reveal our Spotlight games.
Yeah, so starting off with a bang here, probably one of the most highly anticipated games across the Lone Star State this week. It is actually happening tonight.
Let's go!
Thursday night game. So if you are able to watch, you can find this game between the number 2 ranked Brock Eagles and the 5th ranked Wimberley Texans, 4A Division 2 versus 3A Division 1. We are incredibly excited for this one. Brock's defense has looked the part. Their offense off to a little bit of a shaky start, which is not usual for Brock, but Brock is doing that thing again where they're playing a ridiculously tough non-district schedule. So punching up to a very established Wimberley Texans team, you can watch that one tonight.
Wasn't it
TexanLive.com?
Wasn't it last season that they started 0-3 because there's
0-4?
0-4.
They were the
that's
best
right.
0-4
and then they went
team ever.
Yeah, that was, and then they made it all the way to the state championship, of course.
Yeah.
But that was such a weird time because we were all like, "What's going on with Brock? They're 0-4," and then they come out and pull it all, they go undefeated until state.
Ish and I went to their week 3 game, no, maybe week 2 game against Wichita Falls Hershey because it was on a Thursday night.
Right.
So they had played Pleasant Grove. Pleasant Grove is substantially larger than them. Then they played Hershey, which is also a much larger school than them, with 2 Division I athletes. And it was like they lost in overtime to that one, and then they continued the trek down just a ridiculous non-district slate, and they're doing it again this year. Obviously, it worked, because they made it all the way back to the state championship. But there we go, tonight. Then another game happening tonight, this one in the 6A ranks down in Houston, the Klein Cain Hurricanes taking on the Cypress Falls Fighting Schmales, as I'm going to call them now, because that eagle is fantastic and looks like it's up to no good. It looks like it's kind of on its petty BS.
I was going to say, it looks kind of petty.
Yeah, which rules as a mascot logo. Good shout out Cy Falls, but it's now the Cy Falls Fighting Schmales, Ishmael Johnsons, as we like to call it around here with our chief petty officer. Moving on in, so we'll have a full-on recaps of those 2 games. Then moving on in to our Friday night live look-in games on Dave Campbell's Texas Football tonight. This one a very tasty matchup down in the 6A ranks, again down in Houston. The 14th ranked Summer Creek Bulldogs take on the number 13th ranked Klein Collins. So we're very excited to see that one. Let me pull this up because I think I have who's on the call because I cannot remember as I've typed this out so many times. Chase Snyder will be on the call. We'll be visiting with him at halftime of that big matchup. Staying in the 6A ranks, this one incredibly tasty. It'll be Trevor Bullard joining us for the first time live on Dave Campbell's Texas Football tonight.
Let's go.
T-Pup will be bringing you
T-Pup thoughts at halftime.
Correct. The 19th ranked Shadow Creek Sharks versus the recently into the rankings 22nd ranked Bridgeland Bears. So will it be Sharks or Maximum Bears? T-Pup will be bringing you that one, and just really, really excited for that one. I think that's a really good matchup, and I think it's a really good measuring sticks. Bridgeland had a really good win against Katy Tompkins last weekend that kind of came out of nowhere, which bumped them up into the rankings. They looked really solid, came down to the wire, but were able to pull it off, and we'll see how they are able to do that against Shadow Creek. Then it's time for also probably the most anticipated Friday night game across the state. Lost a little bit of its luster after Westfield's performance last week, but it is always a fun one. And they played week 3 last year. North Shore got a pretty handy-sized win on that, but we'll see where they are. It's the number 2 ranked North Shore Mustangs taking on Matt Meekins and his Spring Westfield Mustangs squad. Spring Westfield started off really hot. Week 1 fell just a really uncharacteristic, ugly loss last week, but they look to bounce back, and what a better task at hand than to try to do that with the reigning state runner-up in North Shore. Moving on down to a cross-regional matchup, we've got Brazos Valley and the greater Austin area. College Station is making their way up 35 as a 5AD1 squad and going to punch up to the Temple Wildcats. This one will be broadcasted on at TexanLive.com. A quick shout-out to Temple. They do an incredible student-run broadcast.
They sure do.
Every single week that they allow us to broadcast on at Dave Campbell's Texan Live. So if you haven't tuned into a Temple game, this is definitely one that you're going to want to see. Interested to see what that defense can do to stop Adrian Martinez-Brown, but should be a really good one and a great measuring stick for just how far College Station could go this year. Heading up into the DFW, we will be joining our friend Thomas Lee as he calls Hebron and Eaton, Hawks versus Eagles out there in the greater Fort Worth area. Interested to see this one. Both of them have potential to start making a little bit of noise, and this would be a really good propeller into district play for both of these two teams. So interested to see some high-flying offense there. And then it's the granddaddy of them all up here in the DFW. Our buddy James Traitley will be joining us as the 12th-ranked Panthers of North Crowley take on the 5th-ranked Lovejoy Leopards out of 5A Division 2. Ish and I were at this one last year, and we expected Lovejoy to go in and really run all over North Crowley, and that's when we finally figured out that Ray
North Crowley's
Gates,
not messing around.
yeah, Ray Gates and his squad was brewing something special. Remember, North Crowley was a really young team last year. They had that one really good wide receiver, Kamarion Pimpton, who really showed out. He's graduated, but most of their offensive production has returned, so they're looking to go undefeated again in the second year under Ray Gates. And then on the other side of that, Lovejoy, if you're looking for talent-ridden recruiting noise, you're definitely going to want to tune in here. An Ohio State player, a Texas commit. I mean, they are
both teams
loaded with prospects. So very excited to watch that one. All of those games that we just listed will be our spotlight games on Dave Campbell's Texas Football tonight. You can broadcast that for free on TexanLive.com and on our Dave Campbell's YouTube page from 7:30 to 10 o'clock. It'll be not Ishmael Johnson. It will be Nick Laupius, our host, who you know, love, and are familiar with at this point, and making his analyst debut in the studio, our director of recruiting, Greg Powers, will be bringing you all of his Cruton knowledge. He's dropping Cruton bombs all over. Incredibly excited for Powers. I think that this will be a really cool perspective for all of you as fans to get a look into what it's like as a person that lives in that recruiting sphere to be able to watch these games live. So incredibly excited. If nothing else, come for Greg Powers. And we should have a lot of fun. So 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night, Dave Campbell's Texas Football tonight. We look forward to seeing you there.
You can watch it for free, too, which is
For
the
free.
biggest steal in the history of steals, in my opinion. So very excited for week 3. We only keep going up from here, so excited to see what kind of product we will put out tomorrow night. All right, Pickle, before we get Rachel on the phone, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Born and bred in Texas hits a little different, as it should. Texas loves doing business with fellow Texans. VCR Now takes its Texas roots as seriously as its many partnerships with schools and universities around the state. It's also why we're so proud to promote our brand in the pages of the Texas Bible, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and on the airwaves of Texas Football Today. Driven by producing quality broadcast video, state-of-the-art audio, and LED video scoreboards at affordable prices, VCR Now makes sure to listen to your needs in its athletic department before recommending the next best steps. Building great products is our business, and it's our focus on building meaningful, long-term partnerships with our clients that sets us apart. From our 24/7, 365-day help desk, the training lab in our hometown of Red Oak, or our sports marketing business plan that puts money back in the hands of our athletic departments we support, VCR Now is built to last. Reach out to us today at info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW. Again, that's info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW.
AP, let's head on over to the hotline, and let's bring in KVIA's very own sports anchor and reporter, Miss Rachel Phillips. Rachel, thanks for hopping on today. I know it's busy season, but really appreciate you taking the time today to hop on with us.
No, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Absolutely. Now, we had you on last year, so you've got a full season of Texas high school football under your belt. But for those of you that don't remember, give us a little bit of an elevator pitch into who you are and how you got into El Paso.
Yeah, so I obviously from Australia, if you couldn't tell by the accent. I think it is. I was just talking with some people in the newsroom and I was like, is it dwindling at all? And they were like, no, it still sounds very Australian. So thankfully I've still got that going for me. Grew up there, went to ASU, got my master's in sports journalism. And when I was finishing up there, I kind of just thought, why not apply for jobs in the US, and got a job here in El Paso, first job out of school. Started news, and then I've been in the sports job now for about a year, or just over a year now. So yeah.
Now, you don't only cover El Paso high school football, but you dabble in a little bit of New Mexico high school football. So what's that like, kind of covering both at the same time?
It's busy. It is very busy.
Sure.
I will say that. New Mexico love to do a Saturday morning football game, which internally hurts me because obviously we have the Friday night football show, and then on Saturday morning I've got to be driving 45 minutes to Las Cruces to go get their last game. But no, it's fun. I mean, you just get more and more football, and who doesn't love football at this point? And then it's also cool because, I mean, right now with non-conference play, we had just last week, we had Eastwood taking on Las Cruces here in El Paso, which is always fun. And that kind of brings it's kind of like the high school version of the Battle of I-10. So you get a bit of high school college vibes.
You can give New Mexico a little bit of taste of what Texas high school football is really about, right?
Yeah, which is it's a big taste. So they certainly, I mean, unfortunately last week, Las Cruces, there was a tough one for them against Eastwood because Eastwood, as we know, is just a powerhouse.
Right, exactly. Now, kind of speaking to that a little bit, let's take a look back at week 2. Were there any surprises that you've seen to kind of kick off this season? I know a lot of these teams have already started playing each other. We've seen El Paso Pebble Hills taking on Canutillo. That always seems to be a popular matchup. But kind of looking back at the last couple weeks, has there been any surprises that you have seen or want to enlighten people on?
Yeah, I think there's been a few. I mean, I think everyone kind of expected Pebble Hills to come in here and just be unstoppable this year. And look, they've won both their games, but they haven't been as dominant as what I think people are expecting. So it's been interesting to see, like, that Canutillo game. I was at it, and it was a winning field goal in the last 2 seconds of the game. That's how they won that game against Canutillo. And I think that shocked a lot of people, especially because Canutillo obviously lost LJ Martin last year, who's just, I mean, a standout player. You can't ever replace a guy like that. So for that game to kind of go down to the wire as it did, and then they played Del Valle last week, and it was 5-0 at halftime. And I fully anticipated that scoreline at halftime to be Pebble Hills winning, and winning by a lot, but both of them having a lot of touchdowns on the board. And it was, neither of them had scored a touchdown. It was kind of like, what on earth? And obviously Pebble Hills, worked into that game and ended up coming away with a pretty solid win. But I think everyone expected them to be a lot more dominant. I think we'll just kind of see them work into the season and kind of build that dominance over the season. Some other ones which have been cool, Coronado, second year under Mike Pride, they're looking a lot stronger than what they did last year, which is just nice to see when a new coach is kind of coming in to have that effect. You can see how 1 year's really helped build them up and make them a better team. And then Hanks, they're 2-0 right now under Scott Belize, who's a new head coach and, worked a lot kind of around where you guys are. And that family obviously has a really strong coaching history, but to see him come in and kind of help change the culture of Hanks High School and see them start 2-0 has been really cool too.
And there's been a couple of teams, like you just mentioned, that are off to hot 2-0 starts, have won every game this season so far. And there's quite a few teams that do make quite a bit of noise in especially the playoffs. Do you see a team that has the opportunity, you think, early on to maybe make a pretty deep playoff push so far?
Yeah, I think our strongest teams kind of in the city would have to be Pebble Hills, Eastwood, and Canutillo. And they're all teams that were in the playoffs last year as well. And so they have that experience underneath their belt now. And a lot of them are kind of senior loaded. So those guys went in there last year, got heartbroken in their losses. All of them lost by one score or less. So it was like very close games that they lost in. And I know that's kind of been driving them all off season as it does so many teams and kind of into this first part of the season. So I would expect those three teams to all be in playoffs again this season and make a deep run. It's just kind of how far can they go with matching it with, the Dallas area schools, because it's a different level of football. We saw it last year when you got there to the playoffs, and these kids know it. So they want to work and get there and be able to match it with them. It's just how much can they go?
It seems like for the past couple of years, we've been able to look at the El Paso region as a whole and point out a couple of different players. You mentioned LJ Martin was clearly one of them, that it's like, oh yeah, there's the marquee name to know out there. A lot of those kids have graduated at this point. Who should we be keeping our eye on, and who do you think is going to emerge as maybe that next marquee player out of the El Paso region?
Yeah, we've got a lot of seniors who are really showing out this year. I mean, Shea Smith at quarterback for Franklin, he's really great. His dad used to play in the NFL. So he's a kid that he's got some D1 offers, and I think he'll build into the season and have a really great senior campaign. And then, I mean, kids that you're going to be hearing about for years now are Eldorado's guy, and then also Chapin's guy. Both of them, they're both sophomores this year. They already have D1 offers. You got Davian Singleton out of Chapin. And yeah, they're both studs. They're both kind of been in and out of the roster both these first 2 weeks. I know Davion was injured last week, but the two of them already have multiple D1 offers, so you just know that, like, they're sophomores. They got offers as freshmen. They're both starting. I mean, they're kids you're going to be hearing about for years. Ryan Estrada is the guy from Eldorado. I was blanking on his name, but the two of them have been so dominant. Ryan missed week 1 of football, and then in the second week he scored a touchdown in the first drive of the game, first touch of the ball. So it's just like those kids, you can just watch them on the field. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. You're going to be hearing their names for a while.
Yeah, the talent in the El Paso region this year just seems like it's on a different level. But let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about the Miners. UTEP heading into this weekend as 1.5-point favorites over a Power 5 school. What are your thoughts on this?
Can you believe you're even saying that?
No, I can't, and I'm so excited for them. What are your thoughts heading into this weekend against Northwestern?
I am scared to hear that because I hate when this team is favorites because they just seem to not do well when they're favorites. That's my internal fear for them. But no, I mean, it's so exciting for the program. I had head coach Dana Dimmelin here on Monday, and I told him that if they get this win, it'll be the first time they've beaten a Power 5 team in the modern era. And he said that sent shivers up his spine. He was just like, wow, that's crazy. They beat Ole Miss in 1967. That's the only Power 5 team they've ever beaten, but that was kind of before Power 5 was even a term. So if you want, they're either 1-57 versus Power 5 opponents, or they're never beaten a Power 5 team in the modern era. So it's really kind of wild that this is a possibility for them. And I mean, I think it's probably the best opportunity they're going to have for a while to beat a Power 5 team. I mean, Northwestern is not a good team, if we're being honest. They've lost the last 12 straight in a row, but they did bring in a lot of transfers, this off season. And I think that's kind of, once that team can click, maybe they'll start to get some wins. And I have that fear internally that they're going to snap the losing streak against UTEP this week. But I think, if UTEP go in and play the way they did against Incarnate Word and really the O-line puts up a strong performance, allows the running backs to kind of make some yards again and get things going. And if Gavin Hardison can complete, if he can complete above 60%, they got a really good chance. So they just got to go in there and pretty much play the same way they played against Incarnate Word. Obviously, game plan's a little different, but if they can play to that level, then I think they've got a really good shot. But they are a shocking road team. Their record on the road is just, that's the scary thing when you talk about this.
Yeah.
They only won one game on the road last year. They also only won back-to-back times once last year. So it's just the odds, their stats usually doesn't align with this being a win for them, but it should be a win, I guess is the way to put it.
Definitely.
Now, usually we end this by asking, if we come visit you, where should we eat? But I don't need that question answered. What I need answered is how is L&J's doing? Are we still at elite form? Is it still as great as I remember it in my brain?
It is still phenomenal. You know, when people come to town, I swap between there and Leo's. Both of them are just phenomenal.
Okay, I don't think I've been to Leo's.
I can never decide where to take people, so I usually just say the names and let them pick because they're both so great.
Yum.
Yeah, Leo's, that's a good one. I know we went to Carlos and Mickey's one time, and then we went
That's also good.
L&J's, but I don't think I've ever been to Leo's, so that's definitely okay. Well, now we have a total reason to come visit you. Perfect.
There you
exactly,
go. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't think you can go wrong though. Is the issue here? There's too much.
No, not at all. Well, Rachel, lastly, before we go, where are you heading this week?
Tonight I'm going to the Sun Bowl, actually. We've got the Battle of the West Side,
nice.
Franklin and Coronado, so that'll be a fun one. It's always cool when those kids get to play inside a D1, football stadium. And they pack it out because it's so close to both their schools. So that'll be a fun one tonight. And then tomorrow, I know I'm anchoring out from Canutillo for their game against Austin. And honestly, I do not know where I'm going after that yet. I'll probably hit up at least one or two more games, but I haven't looked that far ahead yet.
You're not going up to Northwestern?
Totally
too far of a drive.
Got some interesting bosses here who don't like to fork out that much money, unfortunately. I would love to go up there.
That's awesome. Well, Rachel, thanks so much for giving us the time today. I know you're super busy, and safe travels the rest of the season, and hopefully we can get around to El Paso at some point this year to come see you.
Sounds good, guys. Yeah, if you come on by, we'll take you to Leo's and L&J's in the same night.
Let's go.
Let's just do it right now.
Thanks, Rachel.
That's awesome. There she goes, Miss Rachel Phillips from KVI. You can follow her on Twitter at Rachel_KVIA, sports anchor and sports reporter out there in El Paso. And she's just the dang
best. She better
best.
be careful. Don't tempt me.
I know, seriously.
I'll get in a car and go tonight. Like Texas football tonight, yeah, they can figure it out. I'm sorry. I got offered to eat at L&J's and Leo's in the same night.
I know, seriously.
See ya.
Yeah, El Paso is a great place. I've only been there once, and it was last year for
fantastic.
week 0 of the college football season. But that was a really fun trip that I got to take. And El Paso is a really, really freaking cool city. I love it too. We appreciate Rachel for giving her thoughts on the El Paso region. Now let's take a closer look into the highest rated teams in the El Paso region. Now, there currently aren't any ranked teams in the El Paso region, so we went and did the math and looked up each highest rated team in each classification in the El Paso region. Starting off in the highest classification, the 6A ranks El Paso Pebble Hills. Like Rachel said, they're off to a 2-0 hot start with wins over Canutillo and El Paso del Valle. Their schedule looks tough because if you take a look down there, El Paso del Valle and Canutillo are both the highest rated teams in Class 5A. I know you're taking a step down from that in terms of classification and division, but typically, I mean, they really are playing the best of the best there. So off to a 2-0 start. That is pretty impressive for the Spartans. 5A Division 1 is El Paso del Valle. They're off to a 1-1 start this season with a win against El Paso Burgess. And then, of course, their loss coming from Pebble Hills. They won District 1 5A Division 1 last season. And it looks like they've got all the pieces coming back to maybe snag another title. Moving right down to 5A Division 2 is Canutillo, and man, this team knows how to win. They've consistently been the best team in the region when it comes to the playoffs. And last year, if you remember, they made it to the third round of the playoffs for the fourth time in just the past 10 seasons. Like Rachel said, they did lose star running back LJ Martin, which, by the way, he did a pretty good job in the game against Sam Houston. He now plays at BYU. But he played really well in the game against Sam Houston last
No, he definitely did.
Saturday.
And that's the thing is, it's funny because we focus so much on LJ Martin, rightfully so, but that quarterback that they have, Jeremiah Knox, he's a really good player. Like, someone had to get the ball to LJ Martin, you know. But I felt like he was one of the more underrated quarterbacks, and he's back now. And so I think that they've got, between that and then they had that other running back, what was his name? Carleo, I think was his name. That could be wrong. But he was really good as a backup to LJ Martin. And now, I think Canutillo still has something left to prove.
Yeah, they always seem like they've got stuff under their sleeve to pull out, and they've got a cool field. That's where I went.
Yeah, the all blue.
Yeah, the all blue. It looks like Boise State.
Yep.
But it's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Moving right down to Class 4A, Division 1. It's El Paso Riverside. They're also 1-1 to head into this season and have been a playoff team the past 2 seasons. They have a lot to replace to graduation, but have a few key pieces on the offensive side of the ball that are returning, and hopefully they can make a playoff push as well this year.
Yeah, they lost so much. They had a really strong senior class last year, but losing the quarterback really hurts. But they've got some key pieces back at the offensive line, which is good. But they're gonna just have to grow. It's gonna be a learning curve. Once they get in the district, I think they should figure out a lot. But I also think that they do have some. It looks like they've got some good youth coming up too. So maybe in like the following year, Riverside might be back.
Yeah, maybe a little bit early this year, but experience will sure to come. In 4A Division 2, it's Clint Mountain View. They're starting off the season with a 2-0 record with wins over Alpine and El Paso Cathedral. In 3A Division 2 is Tornillo. This is the only team in Class 3A Division 2 in the El Paso region. They are off to an 0-2 start, and I still think they should have been the Tornadoes. The Tornillo Tornadoes. It's a tongue twister, but I've always
that's a
said
broadcaster's nightmare.
It really is, but I still think it fits. But anyways, moving right down to 2A Division 1 is Anthony. Again, the only team in 2A Division 1. They're 1-0. Their first game got canceled, and they have a non-district slate full of New Mexico high school football teams.
Yeah, it's always Anthony is the furthest west school in the state of Texas.
Correct.
And it's just always so hard to get their program numbers are never super stellar, and it's just really hard for us to get a good look at what this team is going to be like until they get to district, because it's just hard to know how good some of those New Mexico, like Las Cruces, we always know around how good they are, but some of the smaller New Mexico teams, it's like we have no sort of measuring stick. And man, it even gets hard in district, because if you remember, their district is insane this year about how far it stretches. So between road travel, and you just want to talk about a program that has a lot of outside things that they have to worry about, that's Anthony. Yeah,
definitely. And moving down into the smallest classification, 1A Division 1 is Van Horn. They're the only team in Class 1A Division 1 in the El Paso area, and they're off to a 1-1 start with a win over Balmorhea last week.
Yeah, that's another interesting one, because we don't really know how good Balmorhea is either.
Oh yeah,
I think they're 0-2.
I was gonna say I think they're 0-2. I'm almost positive, which is just weird to think about, because they've been just a constant powerhouse in the 1A ranks these past couple seasons. So for them to start 0-2, it's like lifting an eyebrow a little bit.
I was just going to say, like, no love lost to Van Horn and what they did, but you go out there and you beat them by 6 to a team that we're still trying to get our pulse on. It's like, okay, but regardless, going out there and seeing Balmorhea across their chest and going out and beating them is not an easy task at all.
No, yeah, you're right. They're 0-2 with losses to Rankin, which we'll talk about here when it comes to the Permian Basin, and then Van Horn too. So, let's close it out in the 1A Division 2 ranks with Sierra Blanca, and they are off to a 2-0 hot start already this season. So there you go, the highest rated teams in each classification in the El Paso region. And now let's go ahead and move right along into the ranked teams of the Permian Basin region. And there's 4 of them. So let's dive right in, starting off with the highest classification and 6A, the number 25 Midland Legacy Rebels. And they snuck kind of into the rankings this week after a really hot 2-0 start that they've had against Amarillo in week 1, and then they had a really big win against Amarillo Tascosa last week, beat them by, I think, 20 or more points. So it's going to be a test this week. They're going up against a really, really stout Abilene team who ranks ninth in the 5A Division I ranks. They had a lot to return on both sides of the ball this year, so they have a ton of experience and depth at different positions, which I think will ultimately probably win out when they play Abilene.
Yeah, that's a tasty matchup. That is a really tasty matchup out there anywhere west of the DFW area. But Marcus Davila has been really good at quarterback for Legacy. And a big credit of that goes they are very, very deep on the offensive line, which isn't the most surprising thing, but it's a lot of experience returning. And so seeing how they match up against Abilene's defense will be really tasty. But yeah, if you're looking for a little bit off the beaten path tasty matchup in week 3, I would highly recommend Midland Legacy and Abilene.
Yes. I think that should be 2A Division 2 for Wink. I might have mistyped that because I had to redo this graphic like 80 times.
Yes, it is 2A Division 2.
It's 2A Division 2, so let me make that correction real quick. The Wink Wildcats check in at number 7 in the 2A Division 2 ranks. They had a great season last year, going 12-1 and making it to the regional semis. They fell short to the eventual state champions in Albany, so literally no shame to that. But they had a really, really good season last year, but I think they were probably just a little bit too early. I know we talked about them last year kind of making a surprise run into the playoffs, but again, I think they were just a little bit early, but they have a lot returning on both sides of the ball this year, and I think Coach Gibson feels pretty confident about the depth and the experience that this team is bringing back this year. And they also have a ton of versatility on both sides of the ball, guys that just shine on the offense and defensive side of the ball, and they're starting the season off hot with a 2-0 start against Reagan County and Ozona, so definitely a team to keep your eye on in the 2A Division 2 ranks.
Yeah, they're multiple. They're always big for 2A Division 2, like just sheer size-wise. They usually dominate up front. Jaden Talley has looked really good at quarterback so far this year, and their running back Hudson Morgan, he's been the real shining star, but I think Talley might be something special that Gibson, now in his 7th year, maybe 6th year, I think, is probably licking his chops going, all right, Talley's only a junior, so for the next 2 years, I don't think Wink's going anywhere.
The Rankin Red Devils, just mentioned them, check in at number 5 in the 1A Division I ranks. They're also off to a very hot start with a 2-0 record so far, beating, like I just said, Balmorhea and Buena Vista. And they had a really, really strong season last year. They went 11-2, but lost quite a bit to graduation. So depth and inexperience is definitely a concern for the Red Devils. But again, off to a 2-0 start, so maybe that won't matter as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's big. When they definitely were turning heads when they beat Balmorhea week 1, and it wasn't just that they beat Balmorhea. I mean, they destroyed them. 40 points.
68-18.
Yeah,
was
40
the final
points
score.
that they absolutely just clobbered Balmorhea. Now that Balmorhea has lost twice, it is a little bit more eye-turning towards the Balmorhea side than the Rankin side, but they have gone out there and just continued, and that's really big because they've got Westbrook, which is going to be a huge task for them this week. So that game happening tomorrow, and then that will probably be what I would assume their toughest competition until they get to the last 2 games of the season, because they ran out with Borden County and Garden City, which, if you know anything about the 6-man ranks, is a hellacious way to end your season. So this game against Westbrook, I feel like, is when we'll really get a good pulse on just what Rankin is made of this year.
Right. Now, they beat Westbrook in the regular season last year, but I think they fell to them in the playoffs last year. So it's always a good matchup between the two teams. So excited to see.
And one we would likely see in the playoffs again this year, to be honest with you.
Definitely. We'll probably meet twice again this year. And to close it all out in the smallest classification, 1A Division II, it's the number 6 La Mesa Klondike Cougars. Coach DeGraffenried Reed is entering his 7th season at the helm for the Cougars.
And he's probably still not 30 years old.
No, I was going to say, I was looking at a picture of him earlier when I searched up his name, and I was like, yeah, he's not very old.
No.
And I remember the first time that I met him at coaching school a couple years ago, and I was like, dang, that guy's a head coach. That's of a very successful program, too. Which is
Tepper
really
was
funny.
like, oh my God. That was like the first time I saw Tepper have like the look of horror that he was turning actually old, because he remembered covering Dalton like just a couple years ago at that point in high school. You know, like no more than like 6 years beforehand, you were covering him in high school, and then here he is as a head coach, as like a 23-year-old going, all right, let's do it.
Right. They had a huge win against Happy in week 1, and then lost a tough one to Jayton last week. We knew that was going to be a toss-up in that game and a tough dogfight. But so they're 1-1 on the season, and they definitely also have a very tough schedule. I think DeGraffenried does that on purpose. Schedules a really tough non-district schedule for them to kind of get that experience. Depth is kind of also a concern, according to Coach DeGraffenried, but should be in good shape with the amount of experience that they have coming back on both sides. And they've been a playoff team ever since he got there, I think. 7 years now. I think they've made the playoffs every single year since. And I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. He's a fantastic coach and knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, between playing Happy and Jayton, then you've got Lorraine on the schedule this week. That'll be a tough one. Even Sands is looking fine. And then Ira is coming up, too. So it's like then it falls off a little bit. But getting all of these tough hitters out right now and then gearing up for the playoffs those next couple of weeks, they'll be someone that you want to keep your eye on.
Definitely. So there you go. There's just a little bit of an inside look to the teams of the El Paso and Permian Basin regions this week and where they stand currently in our ranking system. All right, here's my favorite part. Let's look at the talent, baby, and we've got a lot of it.
It's Mallory's Cruton Corner.
It's Cruton Corner with
WTF
Mallory
edition.
Hartley and not Greg Powers.
Correct.
We need to bring Greg Powers in for a segment just once.
That's
just
fair.
Once to make me happy.
I have said that the whole bit needs to be we need to get every guy in the studio or in the office on this show except for Matt Stepp, just because
Correct.
Stepp really wants to be on it, and it's funny when we're like, no.
Except Schmale, he won't be on it.
If it's for the sake of a bit with Stepp,
True.
I'm willing to let Schmale come on here and say a couple dumb things and then leave.
True. Correct. All right, let's start off strong. I think Rachel already talked about him, but let's go to El Paso Pibble Hills and look at their quarterback, Gael Ochoa. I think I said that correctly. I actually got to see him play last year.
You did.
When they played at Canutillo in week 1 of the Texas high school football season, and most people consider him probably the top signal caller in El Paso. And it's not surprising. When you take a look into his stats last season, he threw for 2,029 yards and 24 touchdowns, ran for 453 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground last season. And how about this, folks? He's staying home to play for the UTEP Miners, that's a huge, huge pull for Coach Dana Dimmel over there. He's more of, I feel like, a mobile quarterback than Gavin Hardison is now at UTEP. And between you and I really think that's where they need to be trending, because going back into it last week, they ran all over that Incarnate Word defense. They looked really, really good in the running game. So just a little bit of a spout there. But Pebble Hills always seems to have a huge offensive line, too. I think that was one of the most impressive things that I saw last year when I went to that game, is how big and how physical up front is for the Spartans. So, yes, he's very well protected in the pocket. Moving right down to Odessa wide receiver Ivan Carrion. I believe that's how you say it. Mm-hmm. I'm terrible at names. So bad at names. Just always have been. Coach Ortiz describes him as a game changer. As a junior, he caught 51 passes for 1,168 yards and 14 touchdowns. And I'd really say that his height is probably one of his biggest advantages. He stands at 6'6" and weighs 195 pounds. And I think he plays some at tight end too, but he's being recruited as a wide receiver. He uses his height definitely to his advantage. He's able to snag those tough passes and high point the ball as it arrives. And currently he's committed to play for the Oklahoma Sooners. He was actually originally committed to Texas Tech, but flipped this summer, I think in July, to play for the Sooners. Moving right along to El Paso Franklin quarterback Shea Smith. Rachel definitely talked about him and sees a bright future for this kid. He already has 602 all-purpose yards and 7 touchdowns through only 2 games this season. He played a little bit of linebacker, I think, in the past season or so, but I think at this point he's just focusing more on his skills at quarterback, just because I think that's what's going to take him to the next level. He's got great accuracy, and he's in sync with all of his receivers. He's mobile, too, and can use his legs when he needs to. He's got offers from in-state schools like Houston, North Texas, SMU, Texas Tech, and UTEP would be also a big pull for them.
Yeah.
And like Rachel mentioned, his dad played a couple seasons in the NFL, so there's no short of athleticism that runs in the Smith family.
No, he's smooth, and that's one of those things. Like people, we had Colin Deaver, the host of Mineshaft, on TFT the other day, and in just a conglomerate of DCTF crossover. But
Correct.
we had him on, and he was talking about the fact that after UTEP dropped that first game, people were already calling for Dana Dimmel, and I mean, he is in his 6th year now, 7th year, and it's like, okay, if they have at least a decent year this year, and he was able to lock down a quarterback like Shea Smith, I think that bringing that in alone and beating out places like North Texas, like Houston, blah, 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 keeping the home kid home, that could help even extend his career a little bit if they have a decent year this year.
Yeah, I wonder if Ochoa's commitment to UTEP will influence that.
Hopefully a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know if he's interested in staying home or not, but again, that would be a big pull for Dana Dimmel. Because I just feel like UTEP does have a tough time keeping kids at home. They've got a lot of talent in the El Paso region. It's hard to keep kids home. I get that.
Yeah.
But this is off to a really good start for Dana Dimmel. Moving right down, there are a lot of good quarterbacks in this region. I just noticed that. I'm like, man, we're talking about 3 different quarterbacks, but well, I guess Midland Legacy is Permian Basin. But if you're grouping these two together, there's just a lot of quarterback talent. So Midland Legacy quarterback Marcus Davila, to quote head coach Clint Harmon, he's got the best arm that I've ever seen in my coaching career. Now that is saying something.
Yeah.
He put up 3,052 yards and 36 touchdowns last season, which is just an insane record. He's a fun guy to watch and has been called the top signal caller in West Texas. One of his biggest attributes, I think, is his accuracy and his ball placement. He's got a really strong arm and can extend the field by slinging the ball past and over the secondary with not much of an ease, with an ease. And how about this? He's committed to play in the Big Ten for the Boilermakers, man.
I don't know how long that's going to last if Purdue keeps doing what Purdue is doing.
Yeah,
Purdue did
stinky.
not look good last week.
Yeah.
They did not look good. And this is a kid that's going to be highly, highly sought after if he becomes open on the market, especially if he keeps playing the way he has in week 1 and 2. I mean, the fact that they're now ranked, if they can go out and get that really good win over Abilene and really start to build some momentum, that's when we start talking about, is this the year that a team out west finally takes down a Dallas team in the playoffs, But Purdue's got to Graham Harrell's got to get that offense cooking if he wants to keep this commitment.
Yeah, well, they lose to Fresno State, I think, last week.
It was bad.
Ugly game. But honestly, like if you're looking at it, this is the type of player that Graham Harrell and Purdue love. Like, this is the type of quarterback that fits their system. He's a pro-style quarterback that can just sling it downfield. And that's who Purdue wants. That's who they're looking for. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him stay committed to Purdue, but a big pull by them. He's a really good player, fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see what he does against Abilene this week. Moving right down to El Paso El Dorado's running back, Ryan Estrada. This kid's different, all right? Because he's only a sophomore. Mm-hmm. But he played last season as a freshman. On varsity. Some people are even calling him probably the best player in the El Paso region. He averaged 10.5 yards per carry last season. He put up 1,326 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns, 280 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns in the air. And in his varsity debut, this is worth mentioning, last season, which was, I think, their first game of the season, El Dorado season, he rushed for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns as a freshman. In his varsity debut. That's insane.
Yeah.
He's an explosive and speedy back and has really, really good footwork. He's agile and just a tough player that can really create his own holes and his own space to run.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the offers that he already has speaks
right.
for itself.
Yeah, he's got a couple of in-state offers. Baylor,
Texas
SMU.
Tech, yeah. I mean, all of those, especially now, if he's able to keep that offer from SMU with them moving, with Tech, if they start picking it up this year, he is special. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, he really is fun to watch. Definitely a player you need to keep your eyes on this season. And let's go ahead and round it all out with El Paso Chapin's athlete, Davion Singleton. Another sophomore that's brought the eyes of Texas on him. He contributed a lot to this team last season, looking at his stats. He passed for 637 yards and 9 touchdowns, ran for 846 yards and 14 touchdowns, and caught 11 passes for 122 yards. He was also on KOR and returned the ball for 194 yards. So this kid is literally all over the place and can do it all at a very high level. He's just a do-it-all athlete for this team, and he currently only holds offers from SMU and Hawaii. But again, you got to keep in mind he's only a sophomore, and he's already got some pretty big offers from pretty big-time programs. So definitely another guy to keep your eye on in the El Paso region this year. A lot of talent. A lot of fun talent, And again, like, a lot of these teams, like, it's tough for them in the playoffs when they run into Dallas teams, especially. But a lot of this talent, I mean, they can keep up, and they're just fun to watch.
Well, and I think that's a thing too, is when you take a look, if you go out and you watch a Duncanville, there are so many prospects, it's almost hard to figure out where you need to be watching because there's so many people. The things that make it fun of watching these games is you can watch a single player single-handedly take over the game. Like, you're watching what they're doing and going, this guy is different.
Exactly.
He's built different.
Exactly. So there you go. A little dive into the El Paso and Permian Basin region. Always a fun couple of regions to cover. I love looking at the players, like we just said, and what that has to offer. But before we get out of here, do you have anything else? Watch Texas football tonight, tomorrow at 7:30.
Correct.
That's all I got.
My final thought is we have got to get out to El Paso again. Someone give us a reason to go out to El Paso. If any of you athletic directors are listening and would like to broadcast your games on Dave Campbell's Texan Live, give us a call, and we'll be out to El Paso in 0.2 seconds. Help us help you.
Correct. I think that's going to do it for us. We both have games to get out to tonight, too.
Yeah.
So where are you going?
I'm going to Flower Mound Marcus at Euless Trinity.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to Crowley at Mansfield Summit, so at Vernon Newsom Stadium. So super excited. This is our first game that we've actually been able to get out to this season, just because we've been so hunkered down with doing stuff for Texas football tonight, which we love, but it doesn't give us the opportunity on a Thursday night to go out to a game like we would have wanted.
The moment that I get out there and I'm on turf and there's a band playing, I might cry. I am so excited to go out to the sideline.
Yes, definitely. It'll be a fun one. Thanks again to Rachel Phillips of KVIA for hopping on to give us a little bit of inside info on the El Paso region. I think that's going to do it for us. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Apple Podcasts only. Okay.
Spotify.
No, not Spotify. Join us next week on Women Talking Football on Thursday at 2 p.m. And hey, go Rutgers. It's Temple Week. Get the dub.
Oh, yeah. It's
2-0, baby.
This is
or
Temple football.